All right, we still have some people coming in, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ting, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Totango. Joining me is Kevin O'Kane, who is the Senior Vice President of Customer Success at Totango. And we are very excited to be hosting this webinar with you. This is going to be the start of a series of webinars. We're going to be focusing on some of the customer success industry trends and best practices. Just before we get started, I wanted to just cover a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, this webinar is being recorded, and so you will be able to, we'll send you a link with access to the webinar as well as to the report within 24 hours after the conclusion of our webinar. All the attendees are on listen mode right now, but feel free to please put in your questions in the Q&A section, and we will go ahead and answer those, as many as we can, at the end of the webinar. Any that we don't get to, we will answer. And as I mentioned, we'll be having a series of webinars touching on different topics. So if there are other topics you're interested in thinking and hearing about, please go ahead and submit those in the Q&A as well. And so we have a lot of content to go through, so we're gonna kick off and get started. So today we're talking about the 2019 State of Customer Success Industry. We're gonna be touching on highlights from two of our most recent research, the studies that cover the changing compensation structure, coverage models, as well as how technology is enabling customer success. Just a little bit of background. Totango has been conducting this survey since 2013. This year, 2019, we had over 500 professionals who participated in this survey, and we collected and analyzed over 10,000 data points. These came from customer success leaders who participated, from directors to team managers to vice presidents of customer success, as well as chief customer success officers, chief customer officers, as well as the important customer-facing individual contributor roles like customer success managers, operations, account managers, and CS engineers. In addition to the report, we've also launched a new quantitative report that takes into account all the vast amounts of anonymous aggregated data that's running through the Totango platform. We looked at over 80 million data signals to look at how technology including insights on how technology is enabling the most successful companies to drive growth in customer success. As you can see here, our participants were across the world, with the predominant amount coming from both the United States as well as Europe and Australia. So what were some of the key findings from our customer success research? Well, the first is a commentary on organizational trends. Over the last 2 years, since we've been doing this report, we've seen that customer success has risen in the C-level impact as it relates to organizational structure. Over 30% of the participants say that their customer success teams reports directly into the chief executive officer. In addition, though, we've also seen the responsibility for customer success expanding beyond just the customer success team and organization. So customer success is no longer just a function and no longer just a silo in the organization. Secondly, we're seeing a growing maturity and growth in the CS industry. This is indicative of the acknowledgement that focusing on customer success means focusing not just on the top of your pyramid, but the entire base of your customers. And so this year, we've seen a lot more companies utilizing digital tech capabilities and tech touch to broaden their reach and increase the efficiency of their coverage. It's still in the early stages, but we're going to go into details on what that looks like. Third, responsibility for revenue is also growing in customer success teams. Compensation structures are evolving as salaries are now being more weighted on some of the revenue generating activities. When we asked our participants, about 84% of the professionals surveyed stated that their salary and compensation structure included a variable component, which includes quotas as well as bonuses. And the last big point is that data saying is that technology is definitely a critical enabler for customer success. not just in driving efficiency of scale, but actually in the way that it elevates the customer experience and how it actually drives business growth. And we'll go into some data on what those numbers look like. So let's take a closer look at one of the key areas here, which is around key organizational trends. As I mentioned, customer success is no longer a silo. What the data shows is that 99% of customer success teams are working with other teams across the company. Though the core customer success function still resides in customer success teams, the customer success is now much more company-wide. It's really the entire company's objective and entire company's purpose to execute a strategy that creates value for the customer, and everyone across the organization needs to participate. When we asked our participants in the survey, you can see here that the top three majority of where they focus and collaborate on is 90% with sales teams, another 87% with product management, and then 82% with service and support. But marketing, operations, and others are also have close partnerships with the customer success team. When we talk about how these teams collaborate on customer success, it's not just the ability to access the data for customer success and being able to see customer success insights. It's actually also about making sure that everyone can collaborate. So when you think about the sales relationship with customer success, how do you enable that critical handover between sales and customer success in an easy way to convey all the knowledge and momentum that happened in the selling cycle through your delivery, adoption, and customer success processes. And also on the other side, how does sales and customer success collaborate and align together to work on expansion opportunities within the organization? Now I'm actually going to hand this over to Kevin, who's going to go into some more details on some compensation structures, key challenges, and scaling teams.
All right. Thanks, Sam, and hi, everyone. I'll speak a little bit about the next click down on a number of those topics. And so customer success, growth, and maturity. What we are seeing is that the industry is maturing. However, customer success is still a relatively new function in companies. If you were to compare it against a function like finance or marketing or sales, customer success, would be newly emerging, relative to some of those other functions that have been long established for quite some time. What we have seen, though, is that there's still a relatively high growth. If you take a look at the combination of teams that have really been in place for 2 years or less, it's about 32% of respondents, and so that's still pretty significant. We're absolutely seeing new growth in the space, new rapid growth. But what we're also seeing is that teams are maturing. And so if you were to look at the over time view that goes from 2016 out to 2019, you can see that those teams that have been sustained for 3+ years have increased pretty dramatically from 25% all the way up to this most recent year at 64%. And so, although relatively new, teams are producing results, which is why they're being sustained. And what we're also seeing is that there's still an opportunity to drive consistency in terms of the practice and what those teams are delivering on. And so we'll get into that in a little bit more detail as we kind of go forward. Ann mentioned at the start compensation models. And so, I'll start by saying we do track customer success compensation at a variety of levels. And so while there's a number of ways to look at that across geography and variables like the job mix and responsibilities that are in there, we are seeing an increase year over year, in particular for this CSM and CS director roles in particular. And so On the bottom right, what we're also starting to see is that there's some trends with respect to compensation, and so there's typically a base salary, 94%. I'd imagine that there's something else going on there that would make up that remaining percentage to get up to 100. But in addition to that, it's common to now have some short-term incentive approach that would go along with that. And so you can see there's a number of breakouts there with respect to bonuses, which would be 64% of that population. The commissions on upsells at 21%, commissions on renewals at 18%, and a variety of other compensation components. What was also interesting is that in addition to that bonus structure, of those respondents who did get a bonus in 2018, there's still a pretty significant percentage of respondents that did also report getting commissions in the categories of renewal and upsell. So, that's definitely indicative of the shift in compensation, models to reflect the new revenue responsibility that more and more customer success teams are taking on. The other thing is when you start to dissect that bonus structure, even if there's not something that's separate and apart from an upsell or a renewal commission plan component, oftentimes those kind of categories that the bonus would be based upon do include those same categories of renewal and upsell. As well as a number of other components that you can see there, things like Net Promoter Score, onboarding, training, things like case studies, things that would promote advocacy. So we're definitely seeing a shift towards having more and more revenue responsibility related goals show up in incentive and compensation models. And if we were to unpack that just a little bit more, one of the areas that we've asked about for quite some time back to 2013 has been what the top challenges businesses are facing when they respond. And so we've seen a shift there from having maybe lack of direction or tools in order to do the job that was expected of teams, to being very focused on a variety of factors that you can see here. And so at the very top of the list, you see two very related areas being churn reduction and renewals. And then following that, you could see product adoption and onboarding, things like advocacy, expansion, and upsells actually skipping some. And then support, interestingly, shows up as well in terms of helping customers in that mix from a challenge perspective. And so as we look across that, you can see the alignment with the incentive and compensation structures that I just spoke about. And so typically you'd want to provide the right incentive alignment to address the top challenges or opportunities that you would have. And so in context of seeing all of these revenue categories bubble up to the top around churn reduction, renewal, expansion, upsell, it certainly makes sense that incentive models would follow to drive the right behavior in order to positively affect those categories. So we're seeing alignment there. The two areas that I'd just call out that weren't maybe as prominent as these challenges, challenge breakdown views would indicate. In the areas of product adoption and onboarding, we didn't see those bubble up necessarily to the top of incentive models. And in order to produce some of the expected outcomes that you would want when it comes to renewal rates and renewal yields or lower churn or having that next sale or growth opportunity through expansion and upsell. Certainly onboarding and adoption would be very important to get right. And so that could either be an opportunity to look at when you're thinking of designing your incentive programs, or it could be that the focus has been put on the results or some of the outcome metrics, which would tend to be financial in nature. So an observation there. So let's get into to coverage models. So there's a little bit of a distribution here that goes all the way from one account to one customer success manager, all the way to 200 plus. And so without reading the slide there, there's some breakdowns here where I essentially say that there's a category of really high value relationships where customer success teams are covering, and then there's high volume, and so certainly when you're in that 100 to 200 or 200 plus accounts per CSM, you're certainly in that high volume space. And so, we do see many companies starting in what would be that high value space. So a lower ratio of customer accounts to customer success or client success individuals. And so that might be the exact right starting place for many companies. What I would say is, though, in the early days of customer success, having great efficiency was a barrier. In addition to maybe having, a process that needed to be designed, over the last decade, technology capabilities, in particular around automation, have definitely increased. What I would do is just say that over the course of that period of time, what is now possible to reach and scale and cover those high volume accounts, and to make sure that you have a great frequency and quality of interaction, there's a much stronger ability there than I think has ever existed before, which is driving many companies to really push to covering all of their customers across all of their segments, but not necessarily in a one-size-fits-all way. And so when we get into the use of technology, what we also can see is that the portfolio value, so the sum of all of the values of accounts that a CSM would let's say be covering, is certainly you can see here greater without tech touch today in terms of use. And the portfolio size, when you look at the number of accounts that a CSM would cover with technology, you can see there's a higher scaling. Now, I think what I'd say is there's a big opportunity for practitioners here, because when you combine those two views, essentially there's about a 3 times greater value per account without using tech touch. And I think the underlying reason for that is that companies have leaned on people to deliver on a lot of the process for their highest value accounts. And in order to extend the reach, to all of their customer segments, they've leaned on automation and use of campaigns and technology to extend many of those same capabilities, to kind of maybe the lower dollar value, but higher in number account relationships. And so what I would just call out is that I think there's a great opportunity to use those same capabilities, not only for, let's say, the long tail of customers, that are high in volume, but also to augment the abilities that you're maybe delivering today through people in those high value account relationships. And so together, the combination of your process that's delivered through people and the use of this automation and campaign can be a really powerful ability that allows you to elevate the nature and types of services that you can deliver even in those high value relationships. So what we see here across all those categories is that you've got more and more functions and companies that are contributing to customer success, that are working with customer success teams, and that are participating and creating customer-centric companies. What we're also seeing is that customer success teams are producing results, and as coming out of that, they've got staying power in organizations. So the teams are being sustained, they're being invested in, they're growing, and compensation models are being increasingly aligned with top challenges businesses are facing, and certainly growth areas around renewal and expansion are bubbling up to the top of those. There's also this push to cover all customers with new powerful technology capabilities to automate and elevate the nature of the types of services that are being delivered. And so as teams are not only becoming better at producing these results, what they're also doing is gaining much greater efficiency. And that's a trend that I think we'll expect to continue. So Anne, I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah, I think that we've, as Kevin mentioned, we've seen technology being able to really enable a lot of efficiencies and increase in terms of scale and coverage. But I think then the key question is, does automation technology actually drive business growth? We see that the experiences are getting better, but how does that translate into growth of the companies and the business results and outcomes that they're trying to achieve? And so when we took a look at year-over-year revenue growth of companies who are all in and fully utilizing the capabilities of automation, tech touch, and technology, compare those with those that are not, we see that there's about 2.5 times higher growth of those who are using automation than those who aren't. And even for industries and companies that are growing, those that are using automation and technology, you see it even continue at 30% faster growth than those that aren't using technology. So we're seeing the results that it's delivering, not just in terms of your ability to have more efficiency, ability to scale, but also in actually driving outcomes from a business and financial standpoint for organizations. So why is this the case? We know that customer expectations have continued to rise, and that speed, agility, the ability to, that urgency of action is imperative from a competitive standpoint. But as customers' expectations are growing, how do you get that information out to them? How do you make sure that the information is faster at scale while preserving the experiences that you want to deliver across your entire segment? And that's where technology is really coming in and being an enabler of that efficiency and consistency. So companies who are using technology, they're able to tailor that delivery of their services to customers based on the different segmentations of the customers, whether you're high volume or also, as Kevin mentioned, in the high touch segment, there's areas where technology can come in and enable you to cover a lot of the core capabilities in automated fashion, but then elevate that in-person interaction, elevate that to be more customized and of higher value, so that your differentiation becomes not just on products and services, but in experience. And the financial outcome of that in terms of growth, that 30% or that 2.5 times, if you're in different industries, demonstrates, I think, the results of that. So we have some time right now to get to some of the questions. So let's take a look at what's come in. If you have questions, please feel free to go ahead and continue entering those into the Q&A section. I think.
You want to start on? So we have some that have come in. So one of the first questions was in the top challenge section, essentially customer support. So why would that be listed for customer success? So great question. We didn't necessarily have the open-ended commentary that would give the answer from respondents. However, what I'd say is what often will come up in that category is a variety of things. Escalation would be one area. So the ability to not only detect problems early. So think anything that would fit into an early warning capability like a health score model, but also in order to have a process by which you can not only detect the problem but classify it and start to line up some of the organizational responses that would correct it. That's certainly an area that comes up in the category of support. The other broad area would just be things like getting help. And so while not, let's say, break fix type support, where there's definitely a distinction between customer support organizations and customer success organizations. There is a space on, like, how do I type questions that come in, and so training programs and things that might fit in as either an adjunct to an onboarding program, can also oftentimes be part of what customer success teams either position to customers, or that might even have responsibility for. So I would suspect that that would be in those categories. A few others, and we'll get through as many as we can. Let's see. Given the range of different implementations of customer success models, how would you describe what the scope of customer success is? Can take that and basically, I probably answer it in a few ways. I think number one, you've got a focus that customer success teams would put on, being, a best practice model for creating growth. And so the idea of sustainable, profitable growth, and thinking about the importance of making sure that you've got happy, satisfied customers that are getting great value and outcomes from your products and services, that are going to buy more, expand the relationship, renew at high rates, and that become strong advocates for your products and services, which should help to create some virtuous cycle. All fit into to the answer there. The other thing is, I'd say there's also an aspect of being an organizational model that would allow you to take some ambition a company would have around becoming a customer-centric enterprise, and really put that into practice or operationalize it. What customer success also has a series of frameworks and best practices, incentive models that all go into creating those results and outcomes. Just along the way, from a process perspective, the idea would be creating that follow-through capability or motion that would take place after sales to deliver on the promise that you ultimately make to customers. So probably a variety of ways to answer that question, but that would those would be some of them. Anne, I think you want to pick a few more that we might answer?
Sure. I mean, I think there's a question here just in terms of kind of automation and what we're considering tech touch here. Really that's just looking at the areas where we're enabling technology or an automated communication channel to your segments and to your customers. That's primarily most of the time people using that within the high volume space, where there's a lot of customers per CSM that you're trying to touch, and you might not on a daily basis be able to engage them in a very relevant way. And so the use of technology to communicate with them in a very context-based, relevant fashion at the time that they need to have that communication engagement. There's that in the high volume space, but as we're seeing, kind of, there's definitely a lot of opportunity and growth to take that capability and also apply it to your high touch as well. Being able to kind of look at how the ways that you're engaging with them and what might make sense from automation and what might make sense from high touch. And one thing I would actually just add too is one of the things we asked for in the audience is just, where do they think digital transformation is going to happen next? And because of a lot of the data that we're seeing around tech touch, around automation, around technology, the respondents who feel that customer success is a function that is ripe, and if it's not happening now, it will definitely be happening in the near future as kind of the key area where that transformation needs to happen, and that's the leverage of technology and of capabilities to drive those better experiences.
Okay, I think we've got
several other questions coming in.
All right, here I'll pick one. So. Basically, in the very early days, customer success was focused on churn prevention. Do you feel this has changed? I would say, certainly by virtue of the responses, there's an industry focus on creating a better result when it comes to retention, renewals, and so whether it's taking a look at the actual renewal yield that you get, or the number of customers that have churned. There's a focus there. What I do see as a change is that there's a much greater focus being applied on the activities in the process that would create the result of highly satisfied customers that are getting great value, that would buy more, and that would renew at high rates. And so that shift is to one of implementing a proactive process for guiding customers along, let's say, a proven path to success for your product and services. And so, rather than implementing, let's say, exclusively or a greater number of reactive problems where you're already in maybe a poor position to get those results, there's definitely a shift that I believe has been taking place really over the last several years to ramp up that proactive capability. And so that would really start from the way that you're kind of selling and positioning product and services to make sure that there are things that can be delivered on with great consistency in your post-sale capabilities. But then also, really from a customer success standpoint, really starting with onboarding to make sure that, your implementations go smoothly really from day one, and that you're setting customers up for maybe initial success, and then continuing to deliver value in increments over the course of time, which certainly avoids the outcome of having, let's say, a churn type event or situation. So, I wouldn't say that it has gone away in focus, but certainly I think the answer would be implement more of those proactive capabilities and proactive process that should end up creating a result that you're actually after, which is customers that are going to that you'll retain and that will continue to renew at high rates.
Yeah, I would agree in that in the early days, customer success, looking at this churn reduction, and it was really a sort of a one function role and one department role. But now it's definitely kind of taken that next step in growth, where it is a customer enterprise-wide, company-wide initiative and imperative, and that customer success is not only about churn reduction and kind of retaining and preserving those relationships, but really a growth strategy for the entire organization. And the technology is there now to enable that. I think we're out of time, unfortunately. We still have a lot of questions coming through, so we'll make sure we'll get through to answer those. As we mentioned, this is the first of a series of webinars that we'll be having. So once this webinar closes, there'll be a short survey. If you can answer that, especially the question around what other topics you would like us to touch on, we'll definitely be continuing the series and covering all those different topics. As I mentioned, the link to the recorded version will be sent out to you within the next 24 hours. So thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to attend this, and we hope to see you at our future webinars.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.